This is the Rebel Call channel. Welcome to today's show. This is an important video for anybody out there who might be between the ages of 18 and 25 in the next couple of years. And I want to thank a subscriber over on the website who goes by the name of More Valuable Than Rubies for sharing this over on the website, which enabled me to look further into this and what they're actually quietly trying to pass in Congress. Now, we hear about the draft. We've heard about these things throughout history, right? Now the U.S. House Committee is proposing automatic sign-up for military draft. So no sign-up whatsoever. So the second you turn 18, you're automatically lined up to potentially be drafted. Now, a lot of people would say, well, what do I care? That's never going to happen again. That's happened in the past. Well, pay attention to how badly they're gaslighting the young people out there, the college students, with the stuff going on over in Israel and Palestine. A lot of these people are actually going to never realize that this is happening behind their back while they're getting gaslit so badly to side with Palestine. It's incredible, because what you'll watch is a lot of these people who end up getting enlisted won't want to fight for the United States, whatever side the United States takes, which is clearly the United States would side with Israel, because that's the way that they're pushing this right now, even though we all know that Israel is really behind all of the things that are going on. But the people out there who identify as Democrats can't figure that part out, right? They say we got to free Palestine, all this stuff, but they don't realize that Hamas was created by Israel. They don't realize that Israel's really the one behind it. Then they silence people like us from letting them think even further than that. So these are the headlines that are out there. Look at this. Congress is weighing automatic registration for wartime draft. That's very important. Remember this. American men ages 18 to 25 would be automatically signed up for the draft if a measure making its way through Congress becomes law. The proposal by Representative Chrissy Houlihan would mean that men would be automatically registered for the draft when they turn 18. Under current federal law, all American male citizens and green card holders 18 to 25 must register with the Selective Service, but the requirement to do so falls on individuals. Those roles would be the basis of a military draft if Congress or the president decided to implement one, which Houlihan's proposed measure does not address. Women would continue to be exempt from Selective Service registration under the proposal submitted as an amendment to the National Defense Policy Bill for fiscal year 2025. Now, of course, women would be exempt from it, which, I'm all for women being exempt from a draft. I'm all for everybody being exempt from one, because these fictitious wars that they create are not really what they tell you they're there for. I mean, people should realize that by now. We continue to say that people are defending the real enemy is living in the country, is within. It's your own government, okay? But it's incredible how women would be exempt at a time period where they're telling us that, there's women equality, right? Women and men are physically equal, right? A man and a woman could box each other, and it's an equal boxing match. That's what they tell us. Do I believe that? Of course not. But this is the stuff they tell us. So why would women be exempt? Oh, well, of course, right? They don't want you to get too wise to what's going on. So during debate of her amendment last week, Houlihan argued that the measure would allow Congress to spend more money on readiness and towards mobilization instead of education and advertising campaigns driven to register people. According to the Selective Service's annual report to Congress for 2022, the national registration rate that year for qualified men was 84%. The Selective Service says it will spend $33 million. There you go. There's your 33 this year on programs to improve registration compliance rates, money that might not have to be spent if registration was automatic. And keep in mind the other stuff, because remember, I always talk about there's multiple stories happening at once. You got to look at these things and then connect them. While you're hearing stories about this potential draft, now I'm not telling you that we're going to war, but we can all see the whispers of war, and we can see how they're really getting 18-year-olds involved in this staged conflict over in the Middle East, which of course they really should be anti-governments, the governments who are doing this, not the civilians. But these people don't really understand how anything works, but they think that they do, and they're being empowered to do these things, and of course gaslit into it. But keep in mind the other stories that we've heard over the last couple of years about how low enrollment rates are, how people are not signing up for the Army, people are not signing up for the Navy, nobody wants to be a part of it. And why is that? Well, the main reason isn't just because people have become weak and don't want to join the Army. Not that, again, I agree with the stuff that the Army stands for, but the reason is because they've been gaslighting the public with these stories about how the Army is doing pronoun training, how the Army is making it more inclusive. They're using these New World Order terms, which they pretend like people want, but the majority of people are against. It's a small portion of people who are clueless who want that type of stuff, because none of that stuff even actually exists. It's all an illusion of the mind. But they've been putting those stories out there about the Army doing that to do two things. One, set us up for destruction, because everyone's going to go, well, the military is not equipped to fight because all these Democrats were putting in these woke people and doing pronoun training, et cetera, which is true. But secondly, nobody wants to enlist. Nobody wants to sign up for the military because nobody wants to deal with any of that kind of nonsense. It's embarrassing. It's flat out embarrassing. And anyone who doesn't think it's embarrassing is probably embarrassing themselves. So a majority of U.S. states, the 4 territories, and Washington, D.C. automatically register eligible people for selective service when obtaining a driver's license, driver's permit, or other Department of Motor Vehicle identification. Men who knowingly fail to register can become ineligible for federal student aid or jobs at federal agencies and have trouble obtaining security clearances. They can also face 5 years in prison or thousands of dollars in fines, according to a 2019 Congressional Research Service report. Houlihan's amendment also comes after a decline, there you go, in registrations due to the FAFSA Simplification Act, which removed the option for selective service registration on student applications for federal tuition assistance. According to the agency, FAFSA applicants historically accounted for 20% of annual registrations, officials said in the 2022 report to Congress. The Selective Service System, the federal agency in charge of registration, maintains a database of more than 92 million registrant records. The measure would allow the agency to tap into other federal databases to enroll eligible Americans, the congressional aide said. This is not a collection of new information. This is just an example of using the information that federal agencies already have more efficiently. The underlying law of who has to register remains the same. Another challenge is that the Selective Service relies on physical addresses. How many kids between the ages of 18 and 26 change addresses multiple times and perhaps never think to update that with the Selective Service? The measure comes, and that's going to tie in with your digital ID right there. The measure comes amid, because you won't be able to hide with your digital ID. They'll know automatically where you are at all times. They'll know where you're living at all times. They'll know where you're on vacation at all times. That's the point of the digital ID too. One of the points of it. There's many points. So the measure comes amid a resurgence of mandatory military service being considered and reinstated by other European nations as the war in Ukraine drags on and NATO assesses threats posed by Russia. Okay? This is very important to note. Okay? We have many conflicts happening at once, which is another sign that we're headed towards that with low recruitment. We know America's getting dragged into this. Okay? We know that for a fact. It doesn't matter which player is in the White House, right? It doesn't matter which player is in there. They both fit perfectly to bring us into World War III. You got one guy who's playing the character from Naked Gun or the character from all these movies where you see the president completely clueless, hot shots, you know, all those types of movies, right? That's what Biden's playing. Or Trump, the big bad bully, who we could clearly see go to war with China. We could even see potentially turn on Putin, right? So all the civilians need to be concerned about this who are in this age group. Because again, you might think that this is a wonderful thing to go fight for your country, but you're not fighting for your country. In fact, you're just nothing more than a sacrificial lamb to Big Brother. And if we look at the underlying themes here, they've gotten the young people out there so caught up in the Palestine-Israel thing. That's by design. They've gotten them all caught up in this Ukraine thing. It'd be interesting to see, of course, are these people going to refuse to actually go and fight for one side or the other side? And again, all this conflict and this chaos brings about total destruction. And that's what they really want to do here. They want to bring about the destruction of America. So the more they divide America, where literally they'll draft people and they'll say, hey, you know, you got to be on the front lines with Israel. These people are going to go, I don't want to be on the front lines. I want to fight for, they'll probably go over there and turn on their own, you know, fellow soldiers. It's laughable, really. But that's how bad the psychosis is getting with the control they have over people's minds. So it goes on to say that the measure comes amid the stuff that's going on in Ukraine. Last week, the UK's governing Conservative Party vowed to mandate all 18-year-olds in Britain do a year of mandatory military or civilian national service if the party wins its July 4th national election. Again, selection. But not all are in agreement. And all it takes is this one little thing. Right now, they're talking over in the UK about potentially, NATO, the UK doing something against Russia. I mean, the whispers are there, right? The rumors of war are there. And you know what else is there? A rogue government. People who are unelected, who are not selected, so they don't have your best interest in mind. That should be clear to everybody who's a conservative or a Democrat. So, goes on to say, even though someone is registered for the selective service, it does not automatically mean they will be inducted into the military should a draft be implemented. In the event that Congress and the president call upon the agency to use its registry for a draft, men would be called, quote, in a sequence determined by random lottery number and year of birth. They would then undergo mental and physical fitness tests before being deferred, exempted from military service, or inducted into the U.S. Armed Forces, according to the Selective Services website. That's very interesting wording too, right? Undergo mental and physical. What's the mental health that they're going to check? You got to be pro what? You got to be, you got to be willing to castrate yourself. That means that you get a check mark that you're mentally healthy, right? I mean, it's incredible that they're even mentioning this stuff. But Houlihan's proposal also comes as certain military branches like the Army face challenges recruiting new troops due to image problems with Gen Z and Americans waning trust in public institutions. That's all been done by design. And I mentioned that earlier in the video. That's done by design. Okay, that's why the stories are out there. They don't need to tell you any of this stuff. Would you know that they were doing pronoun training in the military? Do you think they told you that because people were going to run and sign up all of a sudden? Or did they tell you that to make you sick? Did they tell you that so suddenly you go, oh boy, we're sitting ducks here. Our military's doing that. These people are, that's what they're worried about. That's done by design. You would never know. You would never know any of this stuff unless they tell you. You have to remember that every time you hear any news story out there. How would you know what they're doing in the military behind closed doors? Why do they need to make that public? Oh, they need to make it public because it's going to help recruiting? Of course it's not going to help recruiting. It's going to do the exact opposite. People hear that stuff and they don't want anything to do with it. And the people who are pro all that, pro pronouns and everything else, don't have the courage to sign up for the military. They're not going to go sign up for that. They don't even want someone to breathe near them. They don't even want people. I mean, we see that these people who identify with pronouns, etc., don't even want you to make eye contact. They think that's like hate speech, making eye contact with them. It's threatening. I've done videos where they talk about how Gen Z's intimidated by menus at restaurants, right? So they did that deliberately. They want the numbers to wane. Then they want to bring us into war. Then they want to draft all these kids. Then you'll have a military that's not even united. Okay, because you'll have people in the military who have different political views. This isn't like World War II where it's like, all right, we got to go together. We got to go do this or whatever other war, right? A revolutionary war, a civil war. This will be people who literally, they're like, you're going to defend us. And they're like, they have tattoos on their body to free Palestine. So what do you think they're going to do? Oh, then you'll hear more chaos about soldiers turning on one another, right? Then you have soldiers who are pro-Russia versus pro-Ukraine. I mean, it's incredible what they're getting away with. Absolutely incredible. And then they have the balls to come out and tell you that they're weighing automatic registration for draft, for wartime draft, right? These people who can't be trusted, who again, if you put the other person in power, the other political party, every single person feels threatened. Every single person says, I don't trust them. But when it's their own party, they seem to trust them. And that's done by design. Just try to use that. Okay, if your friends who might be liberal Democrats, you don't have a clue. Okay, if this all was going down with Trump in power, how would they feel? They'd be like, oh my gosh, he's going to kill us all, right? Okay, well, both sides are working together to kill us all. And these are the types of things we have to keep an eye on. So thanks again to the person who shared this over on the website who goes by the name More Valuable Than Rubies. This is important. There's a lot of these things that get passed through Congress that you don't hear about, that they don't want you to hear about. The stuff they want you to hear about, there's a reason they want you to hear about it, because they want to gaslight you with those types of stories, right? So they want you to hear about the woke military. They want you to hear about that. They want you to hear about that. They want you to hear about that. They don't want you to hear about a lot of these bills that quietly get passed, like the Patriot Act, like some of these other ones that just got passed in regards to anti-you-know-what and words that you can't say and things you can't question. Or things like this when they got, specifically this people who are so concerned with all the stuff in the Middle East and America are the people in that age group at a time period where we know it's about to be 2025. Right? Agenda 2030 is now Agenda 2025. So we'll see how this goes. Thanks again, everybody, for being here. Hope you're all well. God bless you as always and your families.